You're listening to We Deepen Media.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I'm your host, Christina Weber, founder and CEO of We Deepen, Feminine Weapon, and also a certified professional coach. We Deepen's mission is to inspire more meaningful, loving relationships. Definitely make sure you go to wedeepen.com and check out all the upcoming social and transformational experiences. If you're listening before 2023, we're going to pack the year with lots of exciting workshops, events, retreats, courses. So definitely make sure to go to the website. Again, it's wedeepen.com. When you click on that calendar in the top right-hand corner, there's this little icon. Click on that, sign up, become a member, and then you'll get a weekly email every Thursday that will alert you of all things happening in the We Deepen ecosystem as we aim to shine light on the human connection industry. I got a lot to show you and to tell you in 2023 and beyond. If you do enjoy this podcast, please do subscribe, like, rate it. It helps me to continue to record it and helps more people to find it. Give it 5 stars. I like 5 stars. So today I'm tuning in from Maryland, the Annapolis area, and I have an old friend. It's actually somebody who I met through a really interesting series of events. We'll get into that. Jet Eveleth.
Yeah,
Eveleth.
That's perfect. Yeah.
No, how do you like it? You said the guy at the airport said it a really beautiful way.
I mean, I think it said Eveleth, but someone said Eveleth once at the airport, and I thought that sounds even better. But I mean, can you change your name? Yeah, you can. You could call me anything, and I would respond.
Oh my God. I love that. Especially for a hooked on phonics girl. Like I should have been hooked on phonics as a child. So, I have a little pronunciation deficiency and it's always been an insecurity of mine. And when people give 2 shits about how you pronounce things, I'm like, thank goodness.
I think it's the ultimate form of love is to feel intention. So when we correct each other, our grammar, what we're really doing, it's really like, it's a form of like social, like a caste system, you know what I mean? Like social economics to be like, hey, I had maybe access to this information and you don't. I feel correcting people is it's like a lack of love. I just do. It's like, I know the thing is like, if someone pointed to an apple, I'd be like, do they want to ask me if I want this apple? I don't care how they say it. Like we should be looking to connect more.
Oh yeah. Instead of ways
correct less.
Yeah. Because the correcting is the disconnection.
Unfortunately, and it's a judgment. And like, I just think we should reserve judgment for the few times it matters, which is like when it really affects the tribe. Like, hey, that person is physically harming someone. And we're like, hey, you can't do that. That hurts that person. And even then we have to have love underneath it all. But that's the only time my body gets like, is when I see somebody physically dominate somebody else, control and abuse. That's the only time I get activated. But other than that, why would I be activated if somebody said something wrong? Like that's my stuff.
Oh my God, that's so like living in the time. It's like we're in the era of offendability. Maybe I just made up a word there too. But
I like offendability. I think how often you're offended is a litmus test. If you can't think of the last time you were offended, then you're doing some deep work. Now that's different than hurt. You know what I mean? Like, if you're hurt, that's like someone's being racist. You're hurt. That's not offended is like you're falling from your post in a hierarchy. And it's like, whoa, you believe in the hierarchy.
How do you know the difference of the two?
I think you do. I think we all know. I think we all know. I think when someone's intention is to kick you off and make you feel bad, kick you off of like, like your good vibes, you feel it. It comes from the pain body, right? That person's pain body. They're in pain and their pain body's activated and you feel it. But when somebody offends you, like, I mean, it's been so long since I've been offended, but offended is like when you walk around in this world and you are in so much pain, everything's going to offend you. Right. That whole, there's a beautiful analogy, and I can't remember who came up with it, but like, if you have all these thorns in you and they've healed over, but like every time you even bump a corner, you feel the thorn, but the thorn is actually inside you, but you'd have to cut it open and remove it, which would hurt. And so it's like these practices that you employ and what you do in Deepen, and what I do with like clown and acupuncture and all the work that I do is like, we're taking the thorns out one by one, but man, each one is a surgery and a funeral.
So the two of us met because, I was there getting my first colon therapy, hydrocolon therapy, where they, stick the tube up your butt and suck the poop out. I was on my first cleanse at the time, or my first fast, I'll say. This is probably maybe 2019. And while I was sitting there, and there's the physician, the clinic, who is doing this procedure for me, he said, "You know what? You really remind me of this other girl who comes in here all the time, Jet. I think you two should meet." So there I am, bended over on this, or laying on this bed with my butt up in the air or something.
Yeah,
and I was like,
shitting your brains out.
Totally. I'm like, sure, I would love to meet her. Give me your number.
It's so funny. I mean, he was onto something, because when I would come in, he'd always go, "You're so kind. You're so kind." I said, "What are people saying and doing to you that I seem so kind?" But I think he was picking up on a vibe,
He was picking up on a vibe. He could sense it in the way that we were shitting out of ourselves.
The willingness.
Before that moment, so that's how you got to me. But I'm curious, what was happening in Jet's life before that moment? How did you get to be you?
The journey. I think that I am someone, if I had to guess, I am somebody who's not good at suffering, and I never have been. I just always follow my heart. And so, the few times I didn't follow my heart, I got real sick. And so I was just like, what is this? What's this terrible feeling I have? And it was like, this is what happens when you do the thing you're supposed to do instead of the thing that is deep in you, your calling, or your, I don't know, like what's in your heart, I guess, is the easiest way I could say it. So I've just always felt a calling to do things. And so I felt a calling to improvise. And well, a lot of people were like, "What is that?" I'm like, I didn't even know what it was when I had this calling. I'd read a book about it. And I had studied, I was an actress, I suppose you'd say, but I took an improv class to get better at it. And I got hooked on it. Improv. I moved to Chicago. I'd read a book called Truth in Comedy, moved to Chicago and did improv like every night for 12 years.
Wow.
Like full on. I mean, maybe not every night, but like 5 nights a week. So I dedicated myself to something that's not even known. I mean, I identify with like break dancers, rock climbers, surfers. You do it because you love it, not because there's any reward other than the thing itself. The thing itself was the reward. It taught me how to live in the moment. And it slowed down time. I got to live in a state of flow. And once I got into that place, man, you try to get out and you're like, why would I ever step out of that state? And I was also practicing a lot of yoga and meditation at the time. So, I basically created a life for myself where I was just always in a flow state. And I don't know if there's any going back, after that. I left to write for television for a little bit, and I got sick. It didn't work. So I went back to the stage, and I was a clown in a cirque show in Vegas called Absinthe. And then after that, I would already been so run down, and I got really kind of sick. I thought, okay, I need to take a break from performing. So I lived in a little cabin in the woods for a little bit. And then I still wasn't feeling ready to perform again. Just physically, I wasn't, strong enough to perform. And so then I just got a doctorate in integrative medicine during that time because I couldn't perform. And so here I am before you. before you, a clown, and and I practice medicine.
Are you practicing medicine right now?
Yeah. So that's what I did when I didn't want to approach the stage without the energy to do it. I could have, but it wouldn't have felt right. You know what I mean? It would, I don't know. It would feel like, I guess, a surfer trying to surf on flat, muddy water. It was like, oh, this is not the time. And it will always be there. I knew that the stage would always be there when I felt ready. I just had to have the sort of patience. I mean, it was the same, like, with love. Sometimes you need a break from love, and you need to go inward. And so I also really didn't pursue that either for 5 years. So it was like a cool little journey inward. I mean, as a kid, I idolized people like Thoreau and Emerson. So it kind of didn't surprise me that my life kind of gave me a few breadcrumbs in that direction of like, you're going to get so ill, you'll need to go live in the woods.
And when we met, you were facilitating Clown Church, which was an improv meets emotional intelligence workshop that quickly became my favorite experience in all of Los Angeles. I was like, this is one of the best ones ever. Everybody needs to go to Clown Church. Everybody. And when COVID first happened and you transitioned online, I was like, okay, come on, we can get now the whole world to go to Clown Church. I love that experience because it's true. There's something of mixing improv with emotional intelligence and being in the moment and feeling your emotions. And we would do exercises where we'd partner up. And I remember having these experiences where you draw in closer to each other and then walk away, and you would feel that experience of somebody leaving you that can be received as rejection in some sense. And so you would feel like oh my God, they're going away. Oh, wait, we're coming back closer. Let's go closer. And it was this dance that I would leave those experiences feeling connected to the group, but also not needing of the group, like not attached to the people, if that makes sense. Like sometimes you go socializing, you're like, you meet these people and you want to take them home. You're like, oh my God, never leave. What's your number? How can we get together again? And this experience, I was so nourished just in the experience that I didn't need anything else beyond the experience, but I knew that I could come back and go to Clown Church again and again and again. It was a medicine.
Yeah, which is kind of funny that you call it that, because a lot of people go, I can't believe it. You did comedy and now you study medicine. And it was like, oh, to me, it's all the same. It's kind of like a way to live in the Tao. Because the medicine I study is traditional Chinese medicine. That was,
And it would make perfect sense that I call it that because I was a pharmaceutical rep for a few years in my 20s. And I left being like, why am I selling this? I want to sell something else, like something that I believe in. Now I'm like, yeah, can I sell Clown Church? I'll sell Clown Church.
Yes, because you're the great connector, So everyone has their gifts.
So where is Clown Church right now?
So Clown Church is just frozen for a bit, but just like Disney, it's not dead. It's just frozen. I just got so busy with school. I was doing a master's and a doctorate at the same time. And I did it in kind of lightning speed for fun during COVID. It gave me something to do both programs at once and do them during the COVID, during the pandemic. I was like, you know what I'll do? So
congratulations.
Thank you. That's my idea of a good time. Well, because it's a little bit, it produces like a state of flow as well. Test taking for me produces a state of flow. It's not quite exactly like performing is really my ultimate pleasure. But during COVID, when I couldn't perform and I was starting to feel better, but not feeling, and then just when COVID hit, I was like, maybe I'll be ready to perform a little. And then COVID came. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll do this. And so it was beautiful. Like every step along the way has been beautiful. I love the medicine and And I don't think of it as separate. So what I focus mostly now in my medicine is doing group healings. So a group of people in the same room, and I do a little breath work with them, and then I needle them all. And then their shared energy, that group field. I also became certified in something called Gestalt therapy. So it's like using the group field to heal each other, which is what we do in Clown Church too. But Clown Church will come back. I mean, it will always be there. I just had to put it on pause. And then as soon as I was going to say the band lifted, as soon as I was like able to travel, and have energy, I started touring a show that I had created during the pandemic. So I have a show called Touch, and I just performed it in Denver like a few weeks ago, and San Diego, and now I'm touring that show. So it's like, oh, my heart. But I feel like it's all, I mean, my dream would be to have 5 jobs. You know, I love to work. I'm a little worker. So having like retreats that incorporate clown and, you know, traditional Chinese medicine, you know, can you imagine?
What's needle? What's needle?
Acupuncture. So let's say after Clown Church, everybody laid down and I put needles in everyone. Could you imagine how blissed out you would feel?
Where did that name Clown Church come from?
So I was doing these open workshops for clown, and it happened to be the only time the Lyric Hyperion had space was Sunday morning. So I was like, cool, I'll do it Sunday mornings. And my friend said, yeah, it's kind of like Clown Church. And we started calling it Clown Church. And I said, well, it's like 2 creepy words suddenly together. I was like, does it nullify? Does it make it less creepy, more creepy? But it was funny to us to call it Clown Church. And because everything I do is going to have a little bit of that slant towards like spirituality, whether I like it or not, that's who I am. I see things from a spiritual slant. But I mean, that's not just me. I mean, that's the work itself. In clown, there's really this split brain. You're split between being the animal, which is what we inhabit, with the perspective, you know, the ability to watch ourselves. And because we can watch ourselves, we can have that space you talked about, the distance. So, you know, time plus tragedy equals comedy. Well, so does space plus tragedy. Space, which means like you could be bawling, but if you're watching yourself and you know it's for the pleasure of these people watching, Lucille Ball, Charlie Chaplin, they were sad clowns, but everyone felt permission to laugh at them. And it's because they had the space from themselves. I mean, I see it all the time with people who really struggle in life and really suffer, is they're not that far from themselves. They identify as themselves. And speaking of, those are the people who are quick to be offended. They think that they are themselves. And it's like, oh, you think you are you. That's why you can call me any name. I don't really think I'm Jet. You know, it's that space. And I think as a kid, I had a lot of space. So I was able to find sort of the humor in a lot of stuff. And that's what the clown does. And so when I stumbled upon clown, which is just a variation, it's a version of improv. It's all under the same umbrella, you know, the great umbrella. But I started studying clown to get better at improv. And then I kind of just started doing a lot of clown, which is, you know, people always, what's the definition of clown? And it's like, oh God. But really if I were to really distill it, it's that distance from yourself. It's like being both 100% the animal and 100% your consciousness watching. And when people have it, like you look in Will Ferrell's eyes when he's angry and you feel permission to laugh. And it's because that little twinkle in his eye lets you know he gets it. He's not really angry, but the physiology of his body, he could be red, he could be sweating, he could be spitting. So everything there is anger, but we see in his eyes that it's all a joke, that it's like, he knows that we're just here for a moment and we just happen to be humans this time, you know?
I love how you just added this 100% consciousness and 100% animal. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. So I can go into these spaces. I've gone into these spaces often where I have observed myself. I've been like, I'm going to watch her do this.
Yes.
And I realized though, through the conversation with Charles Eisenstein, who is episode 61 of this podcast and Belonging. It's a fascinating conversation. And I speak to him about kind of having that experience and realizing that there was also I was probably over too far in the observation and less in the fully being present and me, in the sense of like full participation in life. Cause I would always go to that idea of when uncomfortable feelings would come up, say jealousy, for example. I would go into, oh, well, you're going to die anyway. So who cares? Just watch you. Oh, that's so cute. You have that feeling. But I would then reconcile that feeling through this state of consciousness, but not necessarily being in the full participation of that experience of jealousy.
Yeah. And you have to be in the full experience of it, because when you feel the full ache of it, your container cracks open and it becomes larger. And we want to keep expanding this container. And as we live, the container becomes hardened again. And in order to keep growing, it has to break and crack a little bit. So that ache of jealousy is also equally as important as the witnessing of it, which you were doing the witnessing, but were you really allowing yourself to feel the ache? Because that's the animal going, I watch my dog all the time. And when she gets jealous, she goes, she makes these little sounds. And I was like, she's just jealous and she's really experiencing it. And can I give myself that permission to go, like to let out the sound, to let out the shakes, to rock yourself, to be in the full experience is the only thing that will really allow your container to continue to grow open so you can hold more and hold more and hold more.
It's like these emotions weren't really taught to us in school of like what we're feeling. And a girlfriend of mine, she was diving into therapy for the first time. And she showed me this chart that her therapist gave her that kind of led her on a journey based upon what she was feeling, what emotion that could attach itself to. And she could look at this wheel and see where she was feeling. And it reminds me, this conversation right now is reminding me, years ago, I was in a relationship and my partner and I were arguing, and he was like, you're acting so insecure. Stop being so insecure. And my response was like, I'm not being insecure. Like, no, I'm not. Don't call me insecure. And later I went and Googled the definition of insecure, and it's like not feeling secure. Actually, I was feeling insecure. That is very true. But I had to go and almost like my brain logically had to, because we've been vilified for having these feelings. Jealousy, bad. Insecurity, bad. And so we then overcome, we cope. We use those mechanisms to cope. So when there's actually something in that experience of what I've learned is in that experience of insecurity and jealousy is there's knowledge inside of that. It's telling you something that is guiding you to maybe you're not in the right relationship, or maybe there's something deeper inside of you to uncover, to work through, that you're avoiding through the pushing that feeling away because, it's bad to feel that way.
Yes. The only way to get to the bottom of it is to get to the bottom of it. It's like you got to go, I'm feeling insecure. I bet that has something to do with my childhood. Let's go look at it. Let's go hold myself and rock and feel the feelings I didn't feel permission to when I was a child, and to cultivate a life now that makes me feel full and rich. I don't even know if like what I'm searching for now as an adult is security, because is security even real? But a certain sense of fullness and complete within myself is something worth like, holding on to or exploring.
Now, I sense someone may have just heard that of, you feel insecurity. Okay, so allow myself to go and sit in the corner and rock and hold myself. And that seems like, wait, what? What do you want me to do? What is it? If somebody was to feel these uncomfortable feelings, what can they do?
I mean, I'd say create a safe or sacred container where you can be in them and explore them, because they're probably old experiences they're probably old ancient feelings that you have never allowed yourself to feel, So could that be through a practice like meditation or, some sort of like a Gestalt therapy, which really like looks at the way we compartmentalize parts of ourselves and they are allowed to meet. So oftentimes in Gestalt therapy, you'll have all these cushions and you'll sit on the different cushions and each one will represent a different part of you. And you'll be able to have some sort of relationship between them. I won't even say conversation because sometimes it's not words, but you'll be able to see all the parts of yourself. You could do some form of a static dance or physical, like I was going to say physical therapy, but what I mean is like a massage that is healing, like a healing massage, meaning psychic, like related to the psyche healing. Although, it's all about creating the connection. You could go in a deprivation tank and have the deepest cry you've ever had. You could put on a soft light in your bedroom and tell people to not come and bother you, and shut the door and play some music that makes you feel, close to yourself, and rock until you moved all the emotions through so that you felt permission. There's so many ways to explore the inner world. And I think the best way is to try them all. So you know which ones work for you. Go take ayahuasca in a ceremony, whatever that is for you. I mean, the truth is, I've met people who have done it all and they still haven't found it yet. And it's like, well, you just got to keep looking. And I have met some people who tried one thing and they were like, oh my God, I feel like a new person, And so you're like, you just have to dance. This is the journey, is you have to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and you just try. And I wouldn't be who I am if I hadn't tried all the modalities I tried. And I'm still open. Somebody will mention something and I'm like, whew, I'll try that for sure. I want to know, how much luggage I'm carrying. And I'd love to put it all down before I leave.
Yeah. And it's a constant dance. You mentioned that right now, it's the seeking of this wholeness, or it's the being of in this wholeness. So in that experience of being this wholeness, do you still feel the uncomfortable feelings at times of,
oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, I don't think it ever goes away. I think that's part of being human. Like we are never done. And anybody who tells you they're done, well, they're probably the furthest away. You know what I mean? Like, I just think that, I don't know. I don't know if we're ever done, but I'm always looking for ways to feel a little more complete. And I'm sure I've only taken the first turn in the step of 1,000 miles. I've just turned right, which is great. I've made a turn, it's like, but I still have all these steps ahead of me. But yeah, like I always am subconsciously, I'm still searching for the pill, the secret pill, like, oh God, is that one thing that will set me free? And I know there's not, but sometimes I'll think, clown really, really is, like, as you know, from clown churches, it's a powerful modality, and meditation I have found to be, but I found lots. But then I just recently met somebody who practiced a lot of the things that I think are the holy grails, and they suffer. And I'm like, whew, but it's not the what, it's the how, like they are approaching it, but they're not willing to break their container. You know what I mean? So they may do all this work, but if you're not willing to be truly vulnerable, to truly have a funeral for your old self, you can try every modality and not see any changes. Because if you're locked up and you go in and you're like, I'm going to try ayahuasca, but you're like locked up and you have deep down, the deepest part of you does not want to change. Well, then, even this very powerful plant can't do anything.
And just describe that feeling of wholeness.
I think for me, it feels like nothing has to be done. And I'm not saying I've ever felt completely whole, but the craziest part is when I feel most whole, I feel like I'm everything. It's like a true understanding that I'm everything. And every once in a while that hits me. I've been doing a little bit of lucid dreaming, and I get to experience that when I'm, in a lucid dream, and I meditate in lucid dream, and it is the most truth I've experienced, which is I'm everything. And it's so beautiful. That's when I feel most whole, is when I realize that I don't even exist.
But then, is that taking you away from participation?
It can, if you're not careful. But I see this as a ride. I'm in this vehicle named Jet. And it's like, I'm going to take her for a hot spin. You know what I mean? I'm going to do things that are really fun. And I think I have a nice balance. I could be wrong, but I think I have a nice balance of child-adult relationship with myself. Whereas like I do things that are really fun. And oh my God, I feel like, whew, when I'm on my deathbed, I would be like, I had so much fun. But I also think my adult's pretty strong too, where I'm like, you're not going to be happy unless you contribute. to this world. And so I'm strict with myself of how I eat, how I live every day, where I spend my money. You know, I'm strict in the ways that I'm real strict with my mental and physical health, because I know that gives me the most freedom ultimately. But I'm free in ways that a lot of people aren't, you know, because I realize that there's a lot to be gained from being open, artistically, sexually, you know, there's so much to be gained there. So my child gets to ride a lot of the fun rides too.
You mentioned that you took off of love for 5 years, and I imagine it wasn't necessarily took off of love, but of engaging in romantic relationship is what I'm sensing, what I sense there. Is that true? And where are you at now?
You know, when I say I took it off, I mean, I was open. I was like, hey, I'm open. You know, it's like, even at the time when I wasn't performing, if someone was like, well, I might have said no to a stage because I just didn't have the energy, but I was open to love. But I definitely was, looking very specific, so specific that it took 5 years. Let's put it that way. Like I would just feel something with someone and be like, no, it's not right. You know what I mean? Like I could just feel, I was more sensitive than I'd ever been to being like, oh, this couldn't work. You know, I was like, ooh, I was going in with a very different mindset of, just knowing sooner than later that, you know, and I was like, okay. I felt like, okay, this isn't going to work. No strong attachments to this vibing. But then I eventually met somebody who it's still new, but it's like, oh, this is the feeling in my heart, you know? This is sweet. Yeah.
So there's a newness in your life, a new love.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Really beautiful. And so then I'm like, oh, looking back on how long, checking through my 5 years went by so quickly, but I was like, oh, but in those 5 years, man, I got so close to myself, and it feels very different going into romantic love. Romantic love is so tricky because spiritually it's a tricky place.
Say more about that.
I think unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, it's just the way it is. With romantic love, there is a specialness involved with that kind of love. There often are conditions. In other places, there are no conditions. And so it's a little bit tricky being on a path where you want to constantly be open and available to whatever truths present themselves. And then yet at the same time, you're like, here are the rules, you know? So it's like, I wanted to approach this from a place that's just as mindful as I could be with romantic love.
And what rules does Jet have for romantic love?
Well, I don't have any rules, but I have in the past. I had in the past of being like, I mean, I was married once and it's like, the rules are, you know, I don't know, whatever marriage rules are, but you know, now it's not, I don't know, with conditional love,
well, here's the thing. I think love is unconditional. Intimate relationship that's where the conditions come into play because we only have limited energy.
Yes, that's a great way of saying it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in you, what is it about this connection that you're currently experiencing that is unique to all the other experiences before?
I think the level of communication is really beautiful. And also the connection we have is more heart than I've ever, it's like a new kind of like, oh, it's all heart. So I never really thought I would feel this way where I am open to this person having experiences with other people, you know, at some point, because I'm like, oh, I feel like our bond is so of the heart. I mean, you know, I don't know. I guess I'm always evolving and changing. I hope I'm always evolving and changing.
But you're definitely always evolving and changing. No doubt Jet is a representation of evolving and changing.
I'm going to be a bear next year. I'll be like, I'm a different creature. Yeah. So I love the feeling of like, oh my God, I love that the feeling is so real in me of something I couldn't fathom maybe 10 years ago. That's so cool.
And thank you for letting me pick your brain, because I feel like within this recording, there is this, I view you as one of the greatest facilitators of our time. When people ask me who are the facilitators, you're like in that list of the top 3, maybe even the top 1. Not to necessarily create a competition out of it, but I see in the way that you are with groups, and it's very admirable and inspiring, and it sets a level of standard. Not standard in not standard in more of like an achievable goal. Like you would be a great trainer of other facilitators. And I imagine you are. There are people who do look up to you. And so to have this opportunity, even in this experience, it's just like, I'm going to pick Jet's brain.
Yeah. How does Jet live? What is she up to?
Totally. Anything before outside of, okay. So this is a question. So, when you're viewing romantic relationship, oftentimes it's first introduced to us in children as this way of like creating family.
Yeah.
And so you find this significant other to partner with and to create a life together and to have children and procreate. And what I've observed doing the work that I do is that because we're brought into a world full of light and dark, and that darkness creates the trauma that then can take us further away from ourselves. And so we go through this journey of self-discovery to become more authentically us. And it's a journey. And through that journey, it's like, okay, we're connecting with people. And there's, each soul has a different journey this lifetime. But I see that the couples that sometimes they're very young, that they come together and they're set. And sometimes it takes longer to find that person, because there's more of a seeking, it's a seeking soul, and the seeking soul tries out multiple relationships. It meets multiple people, because in each relationship, we learn so much about ourselves through that reflection of that experience. And that then, while you're still in that journey of like, but wait, what about, getting married and having babies and doing all those family things? Where you are at in your life, does that show up for you?
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe not. I'm a bit odd in the way I live a little more like a hermit. I've never had any dreams that are traditional. Like as a kid, I didn't dream of a wedding. I didn't dream of children. I did have dreams of wanting to live in the woods, like Emerson and Thoreau. That was like, I kind of idolized, like, Shaolin monks. Like as a kid, I was like, wow, I wish I could do that. So I think it shouldn't be surprising. It shouldn't be surprising that I've never had like a jealousy pang watching a wedding. But if you were like, Jet, would you want to go away for a year to Tibet and do a year of silence? I would want that so bad. That's like, I would love to do a year of silence. That's on my radar. I wouldn't say a bucket list, but I also honestly feel like I could die right now and I'd be pretty happy. Like, I would be like, yeah, this was an amazing ride. Sometimes my life is so good. I'm like, I should get out. Like maybe lightning will strike, boom. But also equally, it's so beautiful. I said that recently to my sweetheart, and he's like, yeah, but if it's that good, don't you want to keep going? And I was like, well, yeah, everything in my body wants to keep going. My organism is designed for that. But also to be able to just root yourself in the moment and go, this is enough. I think often our fear of death is because we think that we haven't gotten to the thing that will make our lives meaningful. And if we just get there, then we think we'll be okay with death. And it's like, yeah, well, that doesn't exist, So like right now is the closest you're going to get. And then the more I meditate on that, the more I go, well, then I guess I could go right now, which gives me a certain amount of freedom. But like being somebody who deeply would love to do something like go away for a year and live a monastic life, then the struggle with romance is like finding the balance of that, where it's like, oh, I truly have to. I guess that's the definition of tantra, is weaving the material in the spiritual world, and so I get to do that like in a romantic relationship, which is, I think we're in such a good place that we do give each other a lot of time to do the things we need to do to feel full and whole on our own. And then we also do things together that, like meditate together. And I'm like, oh, this is also really beautiful, sharing energy while going inward.
Can you share how you met?
Oh yeah. We met through a project. Actually, we were both on a TV show, just because we're both comedians, and we were both. And I just remember thinking he was so funny and so easy. And it wasn't a romantic pull for either of us initially. It was just like we were always hanging out as friends. And it wasn't until later, after knowing him for weeks, he had asked me like, oh, are you seeing anyone? And I got a little bit like flustered, and that's pretty rare for me. It was fun. Speaking of watching yourself, when you say you watch yourself, I was watching myself be flustered, and I love the moments where parts of yourself get to meet, because I was like, what are you doing right now? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just, because I was like, I'm really not. No, I'm not. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm seeing anyone. Like it was a joke, and I just couldn't stop talking. I thought if I kept talking, I would finally land on something that made sense. And I watched myself talk for what felt like way too long about not really seeing anyone. And then I went up to my room, and I was like, what was that? I was like, what? And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. And then I had to have that conversation with myself and be like, oh, I like him, which was really cool. It was like really cool when these parts of yourself meet, and you're like, I'm like, do I have a crush on him? So I have nothing to lose. So I just texted him, and I was like, listen, I think I acted weird when you asked me that, and I knew he wasn't asking because he was interested. I think he was just like asking as a friend. We hadn't discussed that yet. We talked about everything else under the sun, but we hadn't really talked about romance. It was almost like we were two kid friends. We talked about kid stuff, and I mean that in a good way. You know what I mean? Like what we loved, and we played games, and we laughed a lot together, but it wasn't romantic. And to me, that childlike energy actually made it so much more beautiful, because I was always kind of searching for him on the set, of being like, where is he? I just want to be near him. But I wouldn't have processed that was romantic, and it maybe wasn't initially. But I was like, I'm just going to snip this in the bud, where I'm like, hey, listen, I think I acted weird when you asked me that, because I think I have a crush on you, but I also don't need to have a crush on you if that doesn't work for you. Because I wanted to just kind of like get rid of that. If that was like, he was like, no, I would never like you. I'd be like, cool, then we'll go back to being good friends. Because if I were to have an agenda, which, I don't want to have one, but if I were to have an agenda, I really wanted him to be my friend. I was like, I want him to be my best friend. And that's pretty rare for me to meet someone and be like, you're going to be my friend. But I felt it with him like a little kid who was like, I really hope he's my best friend. That's the feeling that was so alive in me, is I wanted him to be my best friend. And I was 100% okay with him not liking me. That's how much I liked him as a person, that I was like, yeah, if he likes me, like maybe we could figure out how to make that work. But like, that's not the base of this. The basis of this is I like to be near him. And that feels great.
Mm.
I mean, how much I laugh, how much I really think around him, the good thoughts about, why we're here. as humans, not just him and I, but just as like why we're here and why things work the way they work and the great patterns of everything. That's like a great feeling.
How to respond to the text?
Oh, so he didn't respond for a little bit. And I was like, oh, okay. But I was like, I knew he wasn't going to be weird because that just wasn't the vibe. But he was like, oh, I'm in this kind of long distance thing, but I would love to be friends. And I was like, great. I was like, cool. Like, I'd rather know the dealio. I wasn't like bothered at all because he was very kind. It was like, we have a kindred spirit. It was beautifully written. I mean, and I remember being like, cool. It was almost like, okay, now we can move on to whatever we need to move on. But I knew that just couldn't sit there, which is like the communication is important, right? If I'm keeping it a secret, I have a crush on him, then I don't know how to. So I was like, cool. So we just were friends for a while. And then when that relationship ended, it created an opening for us to be more. So it's kind of beautiful to start off as friends, And
that's what they say. I was like, everybody wants to be with their best friend. We want that feeling because there's this beautiful quote about friendship being one of the most underrated types of relationships that we have because it's something that bonds us without a blood. It's like this unspoken feeling, connection to another human being that isn't jeopardized. It's like, there's no agenda.
Yes, I was just about to say there's no agenda because in blood, there's an agenda for your genetics. And in romantics, there's an agenda often of genetics as well, sometimes, or at least survival, right? We're together, we'll look out for each other. Friendship, there's less of an agenda. Often the real connection is play. My doctor once told me a story where she had a German Shepherd and they lived in Santa Barbara and the German Shepherd would go to the beach and play with the same seal every day. The seal would come out and they would play in the water. And when the German Shepherd became so old that they knew they had to euthanize him, they decided to bring him down to the beach and they laid him on the beach and the seal came out of the water and laid her head on him. And they said that they saw tears. They said, I didn't know a seal could cry. And of course, she told me the story. I'm bawling. She's like, no, I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, this is all tears of joy and beauty. Like when interspecies relationships have the least agenda, because what can we do for each other except play?
I love, you just reframed something because here I am nearly 42 and I feel this like mission running through me with We Deepen and Feminine Weapon. It's feels so alive and lights me up. And I've had, I'm really easy to connect with people and go back to this. We have limited time, limited energy. So I find that at this point in my life, I'm not really looking or interested in new friends. However, when they do come around, they tend to be people that I work with. And because my work feels, it's like, I don't really have much difference when they say of like, having a separation between work and play or personal and private life. It's like, or personal and private are the same thing. But business and personal life, it's like they're all meshed together because I have this mission that I'm on. And so when I find somebody, I mean, you and I are connected still to this day because our missions are the way that we play and express ourselves are complementary to the other person. And that's what essentially creates the relationship. Like, I'm not interested in sitting around and having a glass of wine and eating cheese.
No coffee and no coffee for me. People want to have coffee dates and I don't know how to tell them. I was like, I was like, I just am a worker because you and I love our work so much. There's not enough time. I want to like constantly be, throwing needles in people and conducting clown and performing. I don't have much time for anything else,
Exactly. Yeah. And I think of even like me in romantic relationship. I'm currently single in the moment, although there's definitely stuff, humans in the brain. But what I really want is a a romantic relationship is for sex.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, it's so good for you. In Chinese medicine, we talk about how sex moves the chi, and it does. But at the same time, if you don't feel connected to somebody, the quality of that, of the chi you're exchanging, oof, you know what I mean? So it's like, you got to find someone who, you know, the energy is compatible. Yeah, it's really, it's
well,
like
even
finding,
too is Dr. John Gray. He's on an episode of this podcast. The guy who did Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And he talks about the hormone prolactin.
mm-hmm.
Prolactin releases in men when they're having sex with somebody that they really care about and really love. But if it's not somebody in that way, it doesn't release, and it actually is more detrimental to their health.
I think that's true for women, not the prolactin, but the sort of way I feel after intimacy is really important to me. It's the same. The reason I eat the food I do is because of the feeling it gives me after, not just during. And so it's like, I know foods that make me tired after, and I wouldn't have experiences intimately with people who it would be a drop energetically. I mean, the same is even true with performing. A lot of times people go, why don't you just perform at this show or that show? And I'm like, I'll lose energy by doing a show that I don't think is beautiful, you know? So we are limited by our taste, you know, as humans. So my taste is very specific in comedy. And if I do a show, I need it to be beautiful. Otherwise I lose energy. So I would rather cultivate and work and design quietly than to be out running around doing every show. Because if I did one show every 6 months that was beautiful, I would still like to perform more than that. But what I mean is, like, that would be more meaningful to me. It's the same with sex. It's like, to be running around to get it anywhere is not the goal.
So you talk about this, and I first heard this in one of your clown programs, is the tragedy plus time equals comedy, or tragedy plus space equals comedy. And it's interesting to bring it right up, because this past week has been very challenging for me. It's felt very heavy. Recent podcast I did on suicide prevention and I called it the mysterious death of Stephen Twitch Boss. And it's opened up, I guess, a great awareness in me. First off is to see the suicide narrative and be so that the media put out and be so easily picked up by the people. Like they picked it up so easily because there's so much suffering inside that they could relate to that feeling of despair. And me knowing, I had a deep instinct knowing when I heard that he passed away, I was like, it wasn't suicide. It was not suicide. And that instinctual feeling, based upon all the knowledge that I've gathered this lifetime and this deep knowing that I have about that, it set me for a quest, because then it feels almost like personal. It's like the media is gaslighting the world, or am I being gaslit in my own experience of what reality is? And in that, I dived down the rabbit hole, and I've done that on multiple occasions this lifetime, specifically with, as you know, we bonded through another experience of Feminine Weapon Day, which is January 30th. The 10th annual Feminine Weapon Day is coming up for the first time ever. We're actually hosting the event 3 days after January 30th on February 2nd in Austin, Texas. And that event, we each year aim to raise money, or we do raise money for children of abuse, extreme poverty, and trafficking. And so I've studied that, and I've seen what's going on. I've gone to those dark places that a lot of people that I speak with, oftentimes I can tell their brain can't handle it. It's just too dark for them to consider. And it can feel like an isolating experience for me because of, you don't want to, everyone's struggling. And so to be like, hey guys, by the way, there's, sex, child trafficking rings happening at your neighbor's house, or could be, I don't know, but I think that's there. And I hear the stories of being there, and especially of, two people that I'm reaching out to right now, Kathy O'Brien, who is part of the MK Ultra Project and Hope Beryl Green, who was born into sex trade. And so hearing of these stories and studying these women, I know for my own process of oddly needing like to find humor in it. Like, because if this life experiences, we learn through the darkness, and the darkness is what actually catalyzes us more deeper into connection. It's the, you know, and you can see who's the great comedian who has since passed away, but he would do a lot of stuff that he would speak a lot of. Carlton is his, am I going to blink on his name? He would speak a lot of truth in his comedy.
Richard Pryor would talk about growing up in brothels, not him.
Not him. It wasn't him.
Oh, I think I know who you're talking about. George Carlin.
Yes, him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he was essentially speaking truth, or what people believe to be true, but in a way that was like, it was funny because it was almost like so bold and so true that they're like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. It's like, can't believe they're speaking
really
the truth.
The first of his, you know, to break that, you know, there's just a handful during that time who were like, what if we talked about the truth? You know, in the 70s and 80s, people started just getting tired, I think, and wanting to talk about the truth. Yeah. It's so refreshing.
How do you reconcile the deep darkness that is also happening in the world?
Well, there was an interview once with Phoebe Waller-Bridge where they said, you know, do you aim to make tragedy or are you aiming to make comedy? And she's like, well, they need each other. And I was like, oh, absolutely. To me, they're not separate, because humor without a depth is really boring, and it doesn't have much, but tragedy without the light is just too heavy. Like what you're talking about when you live in that, and they need each other to, I mean, it's kind of comes back to Taoism, where to feel full, you need both the light and the dark. And anybody who's ever done shadow work knows that, you know, you need to embrace the shadow to feel whole. And for me, I'm not interested in watching any comedy that doesn't have depth. And in the depth, there's always some pain. You know, there's always has to be some sort of ache, some sort of discomfort, because that creates tension. So truth and tension, I think, need to be present for me to really enter into comedy. My one of my clown teachers from Italy used to always say when she'd watch the show, she'd be like, oh, I just leave feeling cold. And she meant like she left feeling nothing because the show didn't have any heart, you know? And when you really show heart, it aches. When you're on stage, you know, from doing clown church, there would be an ache when you do it, right? Mm-hmm. There was an ache when you were in the full animal body experiencing the muchness of life. You will feel an ache. So the way we do it in clown, because I don't do stand-up, but in clown, we experience the muchness of life so that the audience can watch us have that full experience and laugh at it, laugh at our ache, knowing that they hold that capacity too. And so I'm just not interested in watching something unless the person is willing to experience it all for us, which is uncomfortable, but it's the same discomfort as like exercising, acupuncture, like anything worth doing has a discomfort. Pushing a baby through your vagina, like anything worth doing is uncomfortable, but it has this, of course, on the other side is growth. And so that's what draws me to clown. Is in clown, I feel everything and it's so uncomfortable. But what it makes me realize is that is the work. Like, it's like riding wild horses. You will get thrown sometimes, but you'll never get killed. You just get thrown, you get bruised, you wipe the dirt off, and you get back on the wild horse. And the wild horses are your emotions, you know, and they're real and they're not real. You know what I mean? Like, they're real. Oh my God. Is there anything more real than emotions? Like when you're broken over someone, let's say you just broke up, you have the flu. You know what I mean? You lose a loved one. somebody dies, you have the flu for a while. You have the emotional flu. You are taken out. And that's one of the things I love so much about Chinese medicine is we see emotions as real and they really affect the body. I worked in a clinic, a low-cost clinic for about 4 years. And seeing so many patients, I only saw one man ever who didn't come in with like a gray cloud. And he had just torn something. He was an amazing health. He was in his 70s. He had just torn something in his shoulder. We treated him like 3 times and it went away. That was literally just like, oh, he had an anatomical issue, right? Everyone else who came in, there was something out of balance emotionally with them. And I could feel it. You know, you're a sensitive person. You can feel it. You can see it in the eyes. So in Chinese medicine, we say the shen is in the eyes. The spirit is in the eyes. And even after the first treatment, people's eyes lighten up a little bit. They look a little different. And so much of the treatment that we do in traditional Chinese medicine treats the shen, treats the spirit to treat the body, because they live together. There's no separation. And that's what I love about what I do is it's no different than in clown, where we talk about the spirit in the body. You know, it's all, I know I'm such a hippie, but there is no light without the dark. But I digress. I don't know. I hope I answered your question.
But you did. And two is even in my thinking of my whole reconciliation process of, it takes me back to the beginning of our conversation of, so you feel what's the difference of being offended and being hurt?
Yeah.
And you can feel it in the body when somebody hurts someone deliberately, when there's a deliberate action of hurt, that is a no. And thank goodness there are angels and humans out there who are willing and able to battle that in their best ability. How we go about that question, that's a whole other conversation, but they're willing to stand up and say, no, that is not right. We're not accept that. And also though, what I'm getting from that is there is a need for the light and the darkness to work together, but that's through your participation in life. That's through the experience of living. And when you partake in activities like a clown church or like the other ones, as we began to repopulate, we deepen with the greatest brands of social and transformational experiences and facilitators, it's that you are living in this drama of life through activity, through participation, leaving your TVs behind, because so often what we have been in this world lately is video games and computers and not having our social media. And that's taken away from the connection that we actually are, like, turn off the TV because you have the opportunity to live the experience in the movie. And it doesn't have to come with the deep, deep, deep darkness of pain that is, and also too, is like, we can also reconcile that experience of the deep darkness when you have spaces to go to process through it. Like for me personally, I can go down the deep, dark rabbit hole and see all of the the stories that would just make your skin stand up, or the hair on your skin stand up of feeling so uncomfortable. Like, I can't believe this is real and it's happening. But then I can come back into the people who represent love and who are willing to play in the spaces that are inclusive of both the light and the dark. Because it's not like you're going to a clown church and you're running away from all your pain. You're bringing that into the experience, and it's okay. It's like, you don't have to. Oftentimes we think when we go out and socialize that we have to be in a good mood, or that we have to dress up in a specific way to represent ourselves. But clown church, when you go into that experience, or many of the others that represent We Deepen, walk in with your tears. Bring them. I don't need your fake smile.
No. We feel closer together. I think part of the reason we feel close is because we've done so much of that clown work together. We've seen each other as real as we can be. And so it's like, oh, I've seen your soul.
So true. Thank you. So why now? I invited you to do this podcast probably
14 years ago. I think things are just starting to slow down for me. I'm finishing up that doctoral program and, I'm like licensed acupuncturist. All of that took so much time and we have to take so many boards, how much I was just eating information on the regular and writing papers every second. Plus I was developing the show. So I wanted to get the solo show off the ground just to start touring it. Now that everything is booked, I'm like, okay, well, the holidays, this is a perfect time. This is like the first time I've had 2 days off in a row. I can't even think of a time where I had 2 days off. I was like, 2 days off. This feels amazing. But like I said, I'm not complaining because I love everything I'm doing. But I was like, oh, you know what? This would be a good time to catch up. And, I'm like, my dream is I want to reconnect and I want to, if anyone can do it, it's you, which I'm like, hey, Christina, how do I combine clown church with group acupuncture? It's like you get people all connected to each other and in a playful space, and then you drop them inside of themselves or vice versa. But it's like, eventually I want to keep expanding like all the ways I can, I guess the word is help people, it's like, I just want to help people. And I know clown is so powerful. I just went and taught it in Denver and people were like, when can you come back? And I was like, I know, right? We did 5 hours just to give you an idea. That room, the energy in the room was insane after 5 hours. We left and it was just like, I would have people walk in after clown church. Everyone was gone. And they were like, what happened in here? And I was like, yeah, you can feel it, right? It's like, you can feel that stuff. It's all my favorite stuff because it's authentic connection, but it's also hyper play. At the end of the day, all I want to do is play. I always joke that deep down, I think I'm just a dog because I want to do the same things dogs do. Like if you're like, do you want to go outside and play soccer with your friends barefoot? I'm like, yes. And if you're like, do you want to get dressed up in uncomfortable clothing and go get an award? I'd be like, no, because it's what an animal would want. And I don't like formality. Formality, I feel like is too restricting for the animal that is me. And I want to honor my animal. And my animal likes to wear soft stuff. I love to be naked. I love to make love. I love to lay on the grass in the sun. And I'm like, the more things I think of that I love, the more I realize I'm a dog or I'm any animal. And I'm like, oh, I'm the human animal. And what a great journey to leave and come back and to realize you are a human animal. And at the same time, just like any animal, I'm also consciousness and I'm also watching all of this, and finding the balance really is the key. And it's what I love about acupuncture is I always joke, I say, I'm just pinning you to your soul for a moment, just pinning your body to your soul. And that's what acupuncture is for me in a poetic sense. I'm putting needles in, pins you to your little body for just a second. And you have to be with yourself because you can't move around when those needles are in. And, on another level, it's metal in your body. So it's hyperconductive. You literally have telephone poles in your body. So the way that your cells communicate is through biochemistry, like the cells communicate. So it's like telephone where you whisper into someone's ear and they whisper into someone's ear. And that's what your cells are doing. So if you have an injury or you have an imbalance in the body, it's like one cell at a time, right? Well, there's also electrocommunication. Now they found out like 10 years ago, they realized that there's these electrical maps of the body. So it's validating acupuncture, that there's electrical blueprints. Oh my God, I can send you this amazing study. But anyway, I digress. So when you take metal and you put it in the body, now it goes from horse and buggy to telephone poles. And so any kind of communication where your body's like, hey, stop sending all these white blood cells here. We need them here instead. It's like a facilitator for you to heal more efficiently. And I'm like, I don't believe in a cure-all at all. But man, if I go more than a week without acupuncture, I don't feel as good. It's like, it's the same thing we were talking about, like working out, sex, sunshine, good food. Acupuncture is in that category of like, for me, every time I get it, I'm like, thank God. I'm closer to myself after. And so that's why I use that little metaphor of like, I'm just pinning you to your soul just for a moment. Who can't use that? Induced meditation. You have a hard time meditating? I don't know. Deprivation tanks and acupuncture are like a little, cheat.
I'm so excited that you have graduated now and that you are expanding and coming back out to play.
Yes. I didn't leave you guys. Like Yadi too with Unleashed. I'm like, I didn't leave you guys. I just went to go. I mean, I had to go and do all this studying.
You'll always be here. You'll always be here. What is it now that I'm coming out of it? What are you most like? What did you learn that you're most excited about to share?
Oh, that's such a good question. I mean, just recently when I taught in Denver, I was like, I just love this even more now. I love clown even more, having gone and studied traditional Chinese medicine, because energy is everything. And what clown is, it's energetic comedy. When people are like, what is clown? I'm like, it's comedy that's not of the mind. So it's of the body, the heart, the soul. I always say it's like falling in love and farting, because, it's not this intellectual humor. So it's anything that's not of the mind. Well, guess what? All our ailments come from. Most of them come from stress, and they come from the mind. Stress starts in the mind. So it's like, whew. And I'm not saying, I mean, we could get into this whole thing of the mind body connection. We don't have time, but like I said, I've never seen a patient that didn't come in stressed. So it's like, oh, there's a relationship here. And I'm not saying that the illness causes the stress, but the stress also causes the illness, and they feed each other. So when I go in now with clown, it's like, all I'm trying to do is energetically play and help people release all the bondage, that we have over time have just solidified ourselves in this like bondage of, we got to think to get out of this. We got to think to survive. Well, this is the one time you get to just live. And it is so good for your physiology to not be up in your head trying to survive. And so for me, like coming back to clown, it's like, I already thought I believed in it. I already was like disciple, but it's like, whew. I've seen things in Chinese medicine that like have blown my mind. People who couldn't walk are walking. Just through the practice of natural medicine, herbs, acupuncture. I have a regular Qigong practice, and that I think is really, it just really connects to clown.
Why did clowns get a bad rap?
Well, I think like circus clowns, are not quite human looking. The white makeup and the red nose, they're distorted they're supposed to look, like distorted humans, but it's creepy. It's a creepy look. It's not attractive. And then like movies like It and stuff like that, it was like, oh my God, because you're disguised. We can't tell who you really are with that white makeup and the red nose. You're kind of human, but you're not quite human. This is my guess, right? So clowns are creepy, right? But the kind of clown I do is what they might call theatrical clown, which is, it's like finding your inner child, finding your inner idiot, the naive part of you, and being funny from that place. It's how you're funny without trying. That's what like clown is, the way we use it.
Oh my God, yeah.
Okay. If I interviewed all your closest friends, they would tell me how you're funny. And it might be like when you talked about saying words wrong. Oh my God, are you kidding me? All my closest friends make fun of me because I get every name wrong. Like any famous person's name. I think I said Angelina Jolie, and Angela Jolie is what I called her for a bit. Angela Jolie, Jennifer Anderson. Like I would mix up like a grandma, and all my friends would die. And when they would die, all I cared about is that my friends are laughing. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, perfect. I'm going to never learn a name. I'm never going to put any energy into learning any of these famous people's names, because when I get it wrong, everybody loves it. And that's when I feel most loved. Like my friends make fun of me because I kind of think everyone is good. I give everybody an A+ until they show me otherwise. And one time I brought someone to a party that was maybe not totally well. He might have been struggling with some sort of issue mentally. And that slowly became clear as the night went on. And I was like, oopsie. And they were like, Jet, you've lost your +1 for a while. And I loved it because I was like, you guys know me. And they were like, I had to like ask for like a year, like, do you think I'll ever get that +1 back? And to this day, it's still a joke where they're like, everyone can bring someone except Jet. And like, I die because it's how I'm funny without trying. So everyone's laughing and I've put in no effort. That is so smart. The Taoist part of me is like, this is the smartest way to be funny, which is funny without trying. You've seen someone trying to be funny. Effort, when people are trying to be funny, it's kind of smells bad, right? When they're like, ha, 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 I'm going to make a joke. And then they're like, why aren't you guys laughing? And you're like, oh, I'm so uncomfortable.
Yeah. I had my flatmate. I just had an experience living with a guy for 2 months in a sublease. We're actually now have signed a lease back in Austin that we'll move into at the top of the year.
Congrats.
And when we ended this first chapter of the 2 months together, he put together a survey for each of us to complete that rated us. Like we each rated the person in specific areas. He got creative because I did that show X-Rated on the Peacock Network, which was about my exes rating me. Oh. So he was inspired by this and created this, survey for the two of us. And in it was like, how funny is the other person on a scale of 0 to 10? And he rated me a 10 as funny. And I was like, oh my God. He's like, well, yeah, you're just like, so you all the time. And then second, to share on that note is, similar to you and I, we're seekers. And years ago, a best friend from childhood, it was around Christmas time and we were in the car and she says to me in this like kind of judgy way, like, Christina, it's like you're always seeking. And I looked at her and I was like, yeah, I am. And she's like, yeah, you are. And then started laughing. And then I started laughing. But I remember in the energy that she put forth was this judgment. And then once I just received her judgment and I was like diffused it because I acknowledged, actually, that is me. You're right. I am seeking. That's true. Yeah. And then we got to meet each other and laugh, but she let the judgment go. And also I met her judgment and didn't take it in that way. I took it as her trying to aim to understand me.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I just got the chills just from that.
Well, I'm so excited that, again, you're coming back out and I am here. We Deepen is here to support any work that you do in the world. I know. I cannot wait to promote. It's almost like being a pharmaceutical rep where you used to carry the medications. I carried Ambien CR and Keytech and Allegra and Nasacort AQ. And I want to carry Clown Church or Jet. Put them in. I'm already having
fantasies of coming to Austin, but then I'm like, man, I'm doing my show this whole year because that was really like where my heart was, is to create this show. But maybe I'll bring the show to Austin and then do a Clown Church there. Maybe that's the thing.
And we also still have a big network in Los Angeles that they Well, I'd love to promote both the show and the and Clown Church to them. Mm-hmm. You want to come to Austin, Texas, February 2nd?
Oh man, February 2nd. I don't know if I'll be able to. I have to look into it. Because I'm running a show here in LA. So I'm like, who would I be able to leave? And I've got a little theater company. Oh my God. That's why you and I have not been together, is because, I mean, in my heart of hearts, I'm a theater artist. That's where I am. But then I do this stuff because, like I said, I love to work. So like running something like Clown Church or, these group acupuncture, they're so rewarding. It's like the feeling you create in the space with a group of people. It's like, man, I get high by doing it.
It's interesting. When you say you love working, I don't look at you and see this driven by money.
No.
Yeah, it's like you don't work for money. You work for, you live in the same world that we all live in. You have to make money, but you work because you're passionate about the work. It's like the money will come.
I get high from stuff. I get high from, I'm watching this little woman, this little old lady pick limes out of my tree. And it is so cute. I was like, at first it threw me. I was like, what is that stick? She's using her cane to hit the limes out. And every once in a while I forget she's there. And then I see the cane and I'm like, oh yeah, she's still working it. She's still working the tree. Sorry. So that's happening right now. but yeah, no, it's not by money. It's like the feeling I can get. And I feel like we live these long lives. So I never had the desire to do one thing. I'm doing many things that all have a similar goal, which is this beautiful feeling of flow and connection. And so I get that from clown church. But then if I do clown church too much, I'm like, no, I have to do it just the perfect amount that it like fills me. Someone asked me recently, they're like, do you love to teach? Do you love to perform? I'm like, well, I teach because it reminds me of what's important to me. And then when I go to perform, I become a better performer by teaching. And then when I perform, I learn things that I can bring back to the teaching. So it's like, they're not separate to me at all. I wouldn't be able to do clown church if I didn't do 20 years of clown. If like I didn't do that show in Vegas and I didn't, tour shows, I wouldn't understand what it's like to look into an audience member's eyes and to feel the exact same thing, to feel that bond. And so that it's a beautiful feeling to really be in the same space with people. And so I wanted to give everyone that feeling.
I keep looking at time and being like, I should wrap this podcast soon. But however, I need to ask you one last question. How do you view money?
Oh my God. Well, I did do a course with Ken Honda. Have you ever heard of him? He's a beautiful person. I did a course with Ken Honda because any type of manifesting with money stuff never worked on me. Like anytime I try to I'm like, oh, this is, manifesting's tricky for me anyway, because I want to be in love with the now. That feels the most right. If I'm, I studied under Eckhart Tolle's School of Awakenings. If I truly believe in the now, I got to be careful with manifesting. Like I do some work towards the future. Yeah, I just got my doctorate. Like I get that you have to do stuff to like go out and experience life in the material world. But I saw Ken Honda and I was like, wait, this guy could teach me something, because he believes that you make money to give it away. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. I found my guy, because everybody else, when they're like, and then you'll get all the nice things you want. Well, I'm not driven by nice stuff. I never have been. And actually, stuff in general makes me feel heavy. When I own stuff, it makes me so. If you ever give me like a gift, like let's say you give me like a thermos, I'll be like, thank you. Now I have to get rid of a thermos. That's I have to get rid of something. When I get something, I always have been that way. And that's okay. I'm like, oh, I got it better. My roommate gave me this iridescent. I love it. And then I had to get rid of one that was not as nice. And that's fine. That's beautiful. Getting sweeter things. But Ken Honda, oh my God, my mind was blown. You got to do something with him, because you do these meditations with him where you heal your parents because they have money trauma, and you go back and you imagine the life, you give them the life you wish you like, imagine the life that you would want for them. And you have them, you see them being raised through the life you'd want. And then you have that version of your parent meet the current version of the parent, and then they hug. Like, I mean, this is some far out shit, just to give you an idea of how far out this stuff is. But it was so healing for me, because, I had money issues from not having a lot as a kid. And then you become kind of like, stressed by money, stressed by the concept of money. So it really helped me release. I'm not where I want to be with money, where I've like really feel no shackles at all. I'm still like, oh, how about those college loans? I mean, I have 5 degrees. So like I've accumulated. Now I pay off every degree as I make it. But, this last one, I'm like, okay, I got to figure out how to pay off this last one. So it will come. I have faith that I'll figure it out. But when he said you could give it away, oh my God. So I started giving my money away, like, just giving it to people who needed it more than me. I don't know if I've ever felt so high. I mean, it's up there. It's like the same when I talk about lucid dreaming and feeling connected to everything. That feeling when I give it to someone who needs it more than me, oh, it's orgasmic.
Tell me about the experience of giving money away.
Oh my God. I've had experiences where, people come and they will take cans out of your trash. And I'm like, oh, this is a good chance. So I find some money. But then from Ken Honda, I was like, I'm going to find more money than I even want to give, like, oh, this is tricky. But you give like $100 to somebody who really needs it, and the look in their eye and the exchange of energy. I am, those they're called plasma balls at Spencer's Gifts, and you put your hands on the outside of and there's a ball in the middle and a glass ball. And then all of a sudden all this plasma comes out. It looks like lightning comes out. Have you ever touched those plasma balls?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah.
You become the center of the plasma ball and all your energy connects out to everything. And I was like, Ken, Honda, you were right. I do like money because I love giving it away. So I'm hoping that this practice allows more to come in so I can give more away.
I love
this. It feels right. It feels right.
This is so an essence of everything that I feel. And I feel like most people don't necessarily get this, what I'm trying to aim to say with this desire to receive for the sake of sharing has been one of my values, something that I live by since hearing about it in studying Kabbalah over a decade ago. Yes. And I remember one of the teachers I've shared this story in this podcast before as I think I instinctively am trying to find somebody who feels a very similar way. And I was telling one of my teachers that I don't care about being rich. And he was like, well, you know that the more that you have, the more that you can give. And I was like, I'm going to be rich as fuck. Yes. But it wasn't just about money too. I also realized that it was, the more connections that I had, the more, like I look at the more programs that We Deepen has, the more you can play
more, you can give
energy, more. Exactly. Of anything. It doesn't need to be just the green stuff. It can be lots of other things. Like if I have a bigger house, the more that I can share the house and the rooms.
And I see that in you. I see that. I know that if you had stuff, it would be flowing, Yeah.
And it is. And I feel like this like constant thing is flowing through me. But, and so in Kabbalah, they also said this thing of like, tell me how you feel about this one. They say that true giving actually hurts. There's an uncomfortableness that goes with giving. Now, I don't know if they said that because, hey, it's Kabbalah. They're also an institution that lives off of other people's money and survives through that way. But true giving actually hurts. And they, they kind of share in a way that like, give more.
Yeah. Yeah.
To the shared life, to actually live a shared life, we must sacrifice for the shared life.
I do think there's an ache to it because if we're all pulling meat off the bone, when you say, I won't eat that, you are sacrificing something. You are sacrificing your own material form to not put the meat inside you. Like, let's say we're all back, like I watch animals, these African hunting dogs all, fight over a carcass. And I think to myself, we're no different with money, right? Where we're like, that's mine. And so to go, wait, there's something bigger than survival at play. And to take that little morsel or to take that $100 and to go, here you go. There's a beautiful ache to it. So every time I've given away more money than I should be, you know what I mean? Like where it's so different to give $1 to someone, but when you give them $100, you're giving up something. And so I've been giving the place where it aches to answer that question. I make sure I give a place where I give enough that it aches. And then I cry when I walk away. I always cry. Like I can even think about it right now and I'm getting teary that I'll walk away and I'm like, whoa, that felt so right. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not mine. And I'm them and they're me. And in that moment of giving it away and letting it ache, you are witnessing that you are not just you, you're everyone.
In that experience, how is it? Because there's there's a big topic around overgiving and that valuing yourself. You have to value yourself. And there's like the story of Mel Robbins, I believe. So Mel Robbins, do you know who that is?
Yeah.
So she shares that, she was booked for a speaking gig and she arrived early because she wanted to see the other two speakers speak. And she sat in the back of the room because she really admired them. And she listened to the first one and the second one. And then she got up and she gave her speech. She was the last one to go. After, the HR person came up to her and said, I need you to know something. We almost didn't hire you because we didn't believe that you could really be that good because your price was lower than all the rest. She's like, see that guy? The first guy went, we paid him 3 times what we paid you. The second guy that went, we paid him double what you made. So just to know, you might want to increase your prices.
Wow. Good information. Yep. There's a time and a place to create healthy boundaries. I'll always have healthy boundaries, but yeah. I think that's so smart. When you're asking what your price is, you have to really imagine like what it's going to take from you. And for me, like after a clown church, I am spent because I'm in I'm in this like hyperflow state where everything's moving through me. So even though it's amazing, I am tired in a way that is like that after shows, after clown church, it's like, whew, that energy is moving through me. I'm exhausted. So I have to make sure that whatever I make covers, the energy that I just spent. And I bet Mel Robbins, she's like really it's like when you become like, when you're channeling stuff, it takes a few days to recover. Not that you don't feel great on some level, but you're physically, I would just want to go and like meditate for a while after. You have to just go into hiding.
Yeah. Yeah. There's the money is such an interesting experience because here we are. It's what creates a bond and a partnership through all of us to agree to work on a project together. And it also causes so much disconnection and misunderstanding when maybe it's only viewed in the short term. Because there's these agreements like it's instant gratification of doing something together versus long term. And everyone has also different ways of viewing money. There's people who can feel so confident in their money where they're at in their life and be hundreds of $1,000s in debt. It's like different risk thresholds.
Totally.
And other people, they only have, $150,000 in their account and they're scared they're broke.
Yeah. Fascinating. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's ultimately the representation of a resource, but there's lots of resources. And for me, I always put my focus on the resource of my health and the resource of my mind, so, and ultimately the most important is the resource of my energy.
Yeah. Yes. And understanding we all value that differently. We all need different things as well. Oh, Jet, thank you so much for this conversation. I can't wait to share it. It will release. This is our New Year's podcast.
Yeah. What do you call this episode?
Clown Church?
You can.
Yeah. That's one way.
Yeah.
What would you call it?
I don't know. It's like we talked about a lot of stuff. I mean, I usually am so private to even talk about like romance, but I'm like, no, that's the kind of what you do is you can. So I got to be open with Christina, I got to tell her everything. We talked about money. Yeah, no, it's something to do with clown perspective and like that split brain. God,
the power of living your life as a clown.
Yeah. I mean, also like the power to laugh at yourself. You know what I mean? That the distance from yourself to me is so important. That distance from yourself.
So is that never being too close and never being too far away?
Yes. I like that. Finding the perfect distance from yourself. It's so true. Because, I said to my clown teacher once, I said, I heard in Meisner, which is a style of acting, I'm like, you commit 90%, but 10% of you is always watching. So that way you don't like punch someone in a scene. So they would always say 90% committed. I said, what is it for clown? And she goes, 100. 100% is committed as the animal and 100% is committed as consciousness. And I was like, you saw it in clown church. People have these breaks, right? Where they emotionally break, right? And I saw it all the time in clown where people would have breakthroughs, but they look like breakdowns. And I said, Paula, why are all these breakthroughs look like breakdowns? I said, there's people are aching. And she said, it's like, you think there's an intruder in your house but you find out they own the house and you're just the housekeeper. So it's like your ego is the housekeeper. And when you meet your clown, you think they're an intruder, but they own the house. And I feel like that kind of sums up clown to me.
Oh, do you have a website yet?
Yes. So, well, Clown Church LA is on Instagram. But I haven't created. Oh, and I have a website. It's like a long one through Wix, but I'll give it to you. And I also have my acupuncture for anybody who's interested in group acupuncture. It feels like very connected to We Deepen. We should do an acupuncture thing, a group.
I would love that. And you kept yourself off of social media for the most part.
Yeah, I just have Clown Church LA. I don't really check it. It helps me to go inward, not to be on social media. It's good. It's good for my journey. But I just recently started Shen Wellness, with Shen meaning spirit, Shen Wellness for acupuncture, really kind of focused on group. Like, a lot of people, these wine parties, it's like they're a thing of the past, right? It's like, what do we want to do as a bunch of friends? How about play some music, have someone come over and acupuncture, give us all acupuncture together. So that's what I do. It's like, I come to your party and we're just going to throw needles in you. You guys get all blissed out. And then you connect from that place.
Can you come to my family Christmas party, please?
Could you imagine a family Christmas party? My sweetheart, his family just recently had a loved one pass away. And I said, I'll come over, I'll needle everyone, because there's broken heart treatments. And I specialize in like what we would call like the psychology of, like people with anxiety, depression. We call it psychospiritual in Chinese medicine. And it's like, that's my focus, is for people who just don't feel well in this world, mentally. It's like these needles, they can be a step in the right direction, a step towards a better state of being.
I love that. Okay, let's go ahead and wrap this. Thank you, Jet.
My pleasure.
Thank you all for listening to another episode of Deepen with Christina. Again, if you do enjoy this podcast, please do like, subscribe, rate it, give it 5 stars. It helps more people find it and helps me continue to host it. Also, definitely go check out wedeepen.com. I hope to have some clown churches up there to share with you, journey through all the experiences, because what I do enjoy recording this podcast, what I do enjoy most is being with you in person in real life. Okay. Bye for now. I love you.